Hey, what is up guys? So today we're going to talk about whether or not that vegan teacher is good or bad for veganism. Oh, and just a side note, she's actually graded 2 of my videos, one of which was on Sam Harris and the other was me criticizing Ben Shapiro. And I actually got pretty good grades on the video, so thank you, Miss Katie, for that. I will say though that she did give me an X for saying, hey, what's up guys, in my video without pausing and giving you guys a chance to respond to my what's up guys. Hey, what is up guys? So a clip of Ben Shapiro was uploaded.
Okay, first of all, I don't know why people do that. Hey, what's up guys? And then they don't even wait for you to answer. It's like, hey, what's up? Okay, up, I'm looking up. What's up? Okay, some lights, some yellow paint on my ceiling. What's up? Like, you don't even wait for me to answer. Why don't you just say hi? Welcome to the show or something like that. Or just say hi, welcome to class. Don't be a pain in the ass. But if you ask me a question, hey, what's up? Can you just like pause and let me answer? Okay, I'm giving Lifting Vegan Logic an X for that. You get an X.
So Miss Katie, I'm very sorry about that. Let me start this video over again. Hey, what is up guys? All right, I hope that was enough time for you guys to respond to the what's up guys. So I'm actually very interested in this topic and whether or not that vegan teacher is good or bad for veganism. This interest led me to making a poll to get your guys' views on this topic and whether or not you think she's good or bad. And the results were pretty diverse and the comments as well were very interesting. So I'm gonna give my general take on whether or not she's good or bad and just show you guys where my mind goes and what I think about when it comes to approaching this topic. And then at the end, I wanna read some of your comments as well because I found them very interesting. Let's begin. So in preparation for this video, I actually watched a shit ton of that vegan teacher's content and content against her by 3-year-old children and content against her by adults whose audience is primarily 3-year-old children. I also watched David Ram's interview with her in full, which really did a good job of helping me understand where she is coming from with her approach, so I highly recommend that.
Now, a lot of people, my critics will say, well, you fucking made it worse because you're a shitty vegan animal rights activist. Now, this is where that part comes in. You see, I watched DXC's Science of Social Change video. I don't know if you've seen it.
I've seen some of it, but I haven't seen the whole thing, no.
Well, so basically we're talking about this idea of disruption, that we have to disrupt society, and then everyone's going to talk, and then we're going to fix all these problems, and that, it has to get worse before it gets better.
Sure.
So all of my decisions were based on, science or critical thinking or some theories. They weren't just coming out of the top of my head like, oh, I'm just going to try this thing. I was based on, okay, this is what is being told that is the good thing, so I'll do that. And my idea on TikTok was exactly that. Well, I'm going to go on this app where there's a whole bunch of teenagers, and I'm going to stir up some shit, and I'm going to just talk about, I'm going to be crazy. Like my first video was me holding a bunch of spinach, and it's 8 seconds long, and it's like, eat your vegetables! And I look at the camera and I look like a crazy person.
So I've talked to a lot of different vegans about what they think about her content. Some people find her content very wholesome, others find it a little bit insensitive, and others find it cringe or some combination of these things. So I'm gonna be honest guys, and please, that vegan teacher fans that follow me, please don't hate me for this. There is a good amount of her content that I do find cringy. Now here's some things about cringing. Cringing is not necessarily a choice. I can't control what happens in my brain when I watch something and it makes me cringe. Me and my friend Catherine, like John Venus's girlfriend, we have this weird habit of going on YouTube and watching TikTok cringe compilations and going out of our way to make ourselves cringe. And I will say that the reaction I get from a lot of the cringeworthy TikTok content, I do get out of some of that vegan teacher's content. But my subjective reaction to her content is actually irrelevant to the question of, is her content good or bad for veganism? There's so many factors that we have to actually consider when determining whether or not she is good or bad for veganism. She has reached so many people with her message, and now the question comes, is this good reach or bad reach? Is there such thing as good attention and bad attention? In trying to answer this question, I wish I just had access to all of the brains of the people who have been exposed to her content, and whether or not her content has, in a way, helped veganism in a sort of net positive way, or if it's hurt veganism in a net negative way. Because obviously going to her actual channel and reading her comments isn't a really smart way to look at whether or not she's having a positive impact, because those people are deliberate trolls. They purposely follow her to be negative. There's kind of a selection bias in using that as a metric. So I want to talk about now how when it comes to non-vegans, there is very heavy incentive to laugh at veganism. And obviously this is because if you mock and ridicule something, that you should do. It kind of helps alleviate, the feelings of cognitive dissonance. And, if you sit there and laugh at vegans instead of, actually address the arguments they're making to you, you're gonna feel much more content in not being vegan and just kind of like ridicule and mock it and whatever. Now, to many people, it's very easy to laugh at her content and cringe at her content, especially non-vegans. And another thing that people like to do when it comes to avoiding confronting veganism is point at vegans as like crazy and insane and all these other things. And her content clearly acts as fuel for that kind of judgment. It's very easy for people who are quick to ridicule and mock veganism to do this in the face of her content. So that's something else I think about when considering this. I do find it important to paint vegans in a more down-to-earth light to kind of prevent people from even going there and saying like, oh my God, vegans are crazy. Like if I'm sitting here on camera being very reasonable and calm and whatever, you can't really sit there and say like, oh my God, this guy's fucking crazy. But then again, here comes the reach point again. If somebody acts like that vegan teacher on TikTok and online and causes a bunch of controversy and gets all of these views, technically, she is starting more conversations about veganism. And it's not actually inconceivable to think that this increase in reach can help animals. I mean, she has been spreading Dominion like wildfire. Like she mentions Dominion and other very emotionally compelling films all the time. And I'm gonna assume here that there have been a lot of people who have at the very least went to go view it, even if for just 10 seconds. And this is clearly valuable. There's other things too. I mean, people are critiquing that vegan teacher as a source for clout. And that's why there's so many videos criticizing her now, like literally everywhere. So people are spreading her more and more and more, which in a sense is spreading veganism in the idea of it more and more and more. It's almost as if you can view her content as sort of like the means by which we actually were able to bring veganism to the mainstream. Some vegans will say, okay, well, you're bringing veganism to the mainstream, but in a way that is not appealing and that will actually turn off a lot of non-vegans. I understand this point. But again, we don't really have the data to confirm one way or another what her impact has been. So that's why we need to make videos like this where we're just kind of like discussing and thinking out loud and, trying to factor in all of the different things that might contribute to more or less of a positive impact on veganism. She has recently got the attention of Gordon Ramsay and PewDiePie recently. That is huge. PewDiePie is one of the largest YouTubers, and Gordon Ramsay is also huge in general. And even if they're mocking her or just responding to her in a way that makes her look insane or crazy, the fact is that they're still bringing attention to her, which in turn brings attention to veganism. I do believe there is such thing as good and bad attention, so I don't really know where I stand with it being a net positive or net good. As you can tell, I haven't really came to a full-on conclusion about this topic, and I'm really just speaking all over the place. Now, because I really don't know what else to say at the moment, let's look at some of your guys' comments on this topic. So I made the poll that said, what are your thoughts on that vegan teacher with respect to spreading veganism effectively? Please consider commenting beyond the poll too. I'm so curious when it comes to this topic, and there was 30% of you saying clearly net good for veganism, 24% of you saying clearly net bad for veganism, 40% saying agnostic on our overall contribution, and then 6% other. Now, I understand this is only 930 votes, and that this does not clearly represent everyone's opinion in the vegan movement, but better than nothing, right? So Austin Dobbins says, people claim she's bad for veganism because a generation of kids that are too cool for school, let alone veganism, want to make fun of something obviously good. She gets so much hate because she gets so much attention from young kids. If she I think he means if she gets just 0.0000001% of her viewers to go vegan, I don't give a what vegans think of if they like her. She's clearly good for veganism. Yeah, so I totally understand where you're coming from. I mean, the majority of her audience is little children and young adolescents, and I can honestly empathize with these little adolescent trolls who are all over her page. When I was younger, I used to be a little bit of a troll too online, and at this age, it's like really weird. It's like you have this level of apathy where you just don't care about things that you will very likely care about 10 years down the line, and just being a total dick is just okay in your head. I don't really know what the neurochemistry is behind this, but yeah, I can say I very much empathize with these kids that are being total dicks to her. Not that it's right, it's obviously terribly wrong, but I'm just saying that, if the majority of your audience are people who are young adolescents who have this weird lack of a capacity to be reasonable or care about things that are meaningful, then that gives credit to the whole idea that, yes, the majority of her audience is giving negative comments, but that is because they're just little children. It's obvious her goal is to cause controversy, to get the conversation going, and continuing for the animals. Net positive regardless of how much people attack her character, hard worker. Yeah, I totally see this. This is kind of what I've been mentioning, how like she's clearly getting a heavy amount of reach by being a controversial figure, which in turn is causing veganism as a topic to even be brought up in the first place. Of course, this brings up that question again of like, is it good or is it bad attention? What she is doing isn't any different than how most people would react to, say, a dog or a cat being abused. I've seen videos on the internet of people beating other people up for abusing their dog, and they get praised for putting the abuser in their place. But when it comes to it being done to cows and pigs, vegans are expected to keep quiet and say that we need to mind our business. When you see a dog getting abused, you don't mind your business, so why should we? Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, like, the things that she does are for the most oppressed animals on the planet, and the ones that the majority of people, especially in the Western world and in developed countries, don't give a shit about. This, of course, is related to the clear inconsistency of people to, get so upset when dogs and cats are abused, while not really caring whatsoever when it comes to cows, pigs, and chickens. She's both good and bad. The messaging itself is mostly correct, but the method of communication is about as ineffective as I can imagine. It might work well for kids, but I suspect parents will bar their children from seeing her content when they come across it and/or see children consuming said content. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. I just think it's interesting because her method of communication might be the reason she's gone as viral as she has been. So although she has the same message as, say, me and other vegan activists, her method of communication is partially, we could speculate, is partially responsible for the fact that she's gotten so much reach. So it almost brings up the question of like, is the method of communication really problematic if, although it's caused a lot of negative attention, it has also caused overall attention to the vegan movement, which in turn might be saving animals. Her message is wonderful. Sadly, the reaction she gets in her comment section reminds me of high school bullies. People seem to just hate on her because everyone else is, not really giving any valid reason. So many of them just say she's weird, she's a freak, she's cringy, without any valid reasoning, and only say it because they know the majority of the comment section will agree, which is really nasty to say to one individual, which is using her platform to share a message in a way she enjoys the most. I hate that everyone hate watches her. Just leave the poor woman alone. Yeah, she's a clear good source for those adolescent troll kids I was discussing that I can highly relate to being when I was an adolescent. I sincerely feel bad for her with that. I think it's good overall. Sure, she gets a lot of hate, but those people probably wouldn't go vegan anyways. What does matter is a small amount of people who listen to her and go vegan, even if only 1% of people take her seriously. That's still a lot of animals saved. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from with this one. This, of course, raises the question of how many people has she turned to not really go vegan, period, with her activism, even if her activism caused 1% of people to actually go vegan. I think she has the best of intentions, but her style of activism might not always be the most effective. Yeah, I think she definitely has very, very good intentions. And yeah, effective is going to be, I guess, relative to the person who is absorbing or experiencing the activism. So, this comes back to the whole thing of like different kinds of activism appeal to different kinds of people. But yeah, I actually really like this comment. These types of inquiries are like trying to predict what will happen if you eliminate or introduce an organism to an ecosystem. There are just so many variables that it becomes impossible to predict its net effect on the ecosystem past a certain range or timescale. Yeah, this question is super complicated, and I don't even know how we could conceivably, objectively determine the answer, but I still think it's an interesting conversation to have. I think she is like those anti-cringe ads which spread the right message in a way that people don't like. If we see other activists like Earthling Ed and Joey Carbstrong and you and David Rams, etc., then they are so calm and composed, unlike the vegan teacher. Maybe it's just misogyny, but on the plus side, she's reaching such a large audience. I think you should probably make a video on it. Well, that's what I'm doing right now. Yeah, it could very well be misogyny. It could be a combination of misogyny plus not liking the fact that she is attacking a thing which people have an emotional attachment to, such as animal products. Who really knows, but I wouldn't be surprised if misogyny was partially responsible for the negative reaction she's getting. I don't like it when she tries to sing and stuff. I get very paranoid. That's interesting. I don't know, but I do know she's extremely cringy. I think there is no such thing as bad activism. I would disagree with that. You could have activism that involves just punching people in the face for not being vegan. I don't think that'd be a good kind of activism. Probably bad. How dare you say, "What's up, guys?" -1. Oh my God, I know. I'm so sorry, guys. I can't believe people think she is good for veganism. It is pretty obvious that not all publicity is good publicity. You can go about doing the right thing in the wrong way. I cannot be more sure that this deters people from veganism much more and makes them reinforce the negative connotations of veganism they've already been told by media outlets, peers, etc. Also, racism/religious discrimination/disrespect isn't okay. I'm all for animals, and it breaks my heart to see the damage she's doing. Watch PewDiePie's video on vegan teacher. I just don't see how her approach is getting people thinking. People can get easily distracted and just call her ridiculous and laugh at her. She needs to use the Socratic method more in her videos. I feel like her videos are just full of emotionally charged responses. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say her videos are full of emotionally charged responses. She's definitely gotten very emotional in certain cases, but I've also heard her make very reasonable points as well. I think there's a certain point where like, it doesn't matter what she even says at this point relative to the minds of the immature children that follow her. Whatever she says, she's going to be ridiculed by them regardless. So looking at the opinions of these little children who have no intention of even going vegan or even thinking about going vegan isn't really a good idea with respect to determining whether or not she is good or bad for veganism. All right, guys, that is the end of the video. Very loose video, I know. Please let me know what you think, and let's start an actual reasonable discussion as to whether or not she is good or bad for veganism. As you can tell, I'm more or so agnostic when it comes to her contribution to veganism, but I still want to know everybody's take. And even if there's no way to 100%, absolutely conclude whether or not she is a net positive or net negative for veganism, I still think this conversation is important to have. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.
Dude, even vegans don't get your weird, stupid wannabe sense of irony here. Who's your audience? Nobody gets these dumb jokes. Dude, even vegans don't get your weird, stupid